James Scarlett, we go again.
Hi mate, how you doing?
I'm delighted, mate. Delighted. Now, on the first three episodes, you're a bit like, amazing. Can you believe they've done so well? And then you're thinking, right, okay, maybe that was just people being nice and checking us out. Then episode four comes out and blows the doors off of the first three. So it's all good. We could have the makings of a successful podcast here, and despite all odds.
It feels good, doesn't it? We just spent the last 5 minutes patting each other on the back saying, this is going well. We're happy. People like it. Loads of people sending random messages saying it's really interesting.
I get to the point now, I'm getting messages from foreign promoters in Belgium and Holland saying, thank God you guys are talking about this because I felt like I was going crazy. I felt like I was the only person dealing with these insane band demands and where logos go on posters and how agents are. So I am glad I'm glad we're pulling the curtain back now for everyone and everyone's
Yeah.
having a good laugh.
Therapy for promoters it is.
So we bit we bit housekeeping now that we're gonna get into the swing of how this works. They are the time frame we've noticed in the comments, a lot of people are saying if we like try to keep them for under that 30 minutes, ultimately should it go to the 40 minutes over the 40-minute mark, it's not as big a deal as we're making it. We hear you loud and clear. We will not be trying to cut them short if we're on a roll talking about something. So thanks for that feedback and keep it coming. Uh ad reads. And you hate the fact they can't read because no one's reading, but about ads, we always leave Paul Lou to the end before on the record. So let's give him a shout out right for the start. He's been with us right from the start. Lou's Brews, hot sauces, place to go. Go to lou'sbrews.co.uk. Use the code POD15 and get yourself some hot sauce. They are banging, as Big James would say. And he's tightly in with the metal community and your festivals too.
He is. I bought some this week. I bought the Damnation one and the Creeper one. And there's 4 bottles of Creeper. And I bought it, and literally 30 seconds later, I got an email from him saying, I've just refunded your order. They're on their way to you, which I thought was very nice.
Well,
Yeah.
I never knew that happened for you, but I had Paul, the other half of Damnation, he bought some sauces and he just got the refund notice without any explanation. He was like, "Is my money no good here?" So, but cleverly, he used his Damnation Festival email address. So Lou's obviously eagle-eyed.
Yeah.
That's very generous of him, Lou. I'll be sure to get my order in too. Then, if this is
Yeah. Make it a big one.
and the Damnation hot sauce is great, mate. You're gonna love it. My kids are fucking daft for it, and I can barely get it for myself. Another, if I can be use my own podcast, a brand very close to my heart, almost literally, Damnation Clothing is a alternative merch brand. It's not Damnation Festival. It doesn't have the lineup in the back. It's not about the festival. It's just good quality designs, good quality merch printed in Stanley Stella, not in Gildan or Fruit of the Loom. So it fits you and actually sits you. It's not a potato sack. And it's for a now sort of controversial era at the minute where we're talking about AI designs and what's been stolen for artists. Everything by Damnation Clothing has been commissioned artwork artists. The likes of Jim Bob Isaac, who does graphics for Art Tangent and Damnation. The Error Design in Spain. Who else have we got? I think we're going to use Branca Studio. We've got a couple of artist guys over in America. The stuff is great, it's quality. Go and check it out. I'd appreciate that. And after you wear Stanley Stella, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm mad into this. But after you wear the Stanley Stella, it's difficult to go back to Fruit or Gildan. Are you just whatever?
Well, no,
Whatever
no.
you put
Well,
on?
I only wear, much to my wife's annoyance, I only wear band t-shirts. Basically, I've always got a band t-shirt on, and I have to buy 3 to find one that I like wearing that fits right. So
Yes.
yeah, no, it's important stuff, mate.
Do you know the bands that put me on to sort of, and it's not just Stanley Stella. Earth Positive is another one, and there's another brand. The name escapes me at the minute. That it's post rock bands. The first time I ever bought a t-shirt, I was like, shit, this is how it feels when you buy like a designer t-shirt. You know what I mean? something that's supposed to fit you, as opposed to the arms just swinging a bit at the
Yeah.
side in your Gilding shirt. It was an Explosions in the Sky t-shirt at the gig, and then after that, I kind of get into it, and I was like, why isn't metal? Why aren't metal bands like that? And it is a bit more expensive to buy. I get it. It's a couple of quid more blank, but it's definitely worth it. And aye, if folk want it, so I'd appreciate folk checking damnationclothing.com out and pick yourself up a wee hoodie or a t-shirt.
Do it.
It's your turn, James.
Oh, mate. Would you like me to ask you some questions from our listeners?
You've got the questions.
I'm going to say it one more time. You're the pro. Don't expect me to fucking run the show.
You zoned out there. You looked at me as if to say, "Have you got another advert to talk about your stuff?"
When we were planning this, just to peek behind the curtain, and you said to me, you didn't want to host. You wanted us both to host, and I was like, "No, you should host. This is why." Anyway, okay, so here's so we've got more questions. We are going to try and catch up on everyone's questions, because we've got like our own personal socials, and then the Damnation and the Arctangent and Trees. There's millions of questions, and there's so many good ones. So I'm just picking some good ones. James Clay, hi James, I know James. How do you decide a clash is worth having, and how hard is it to avoid them? Do you have big problems with clashes at Damnation?
Yes. Clashes are terrible. I mean, ultimately, if you do your job right, if we've done our jobs right, the whole day should be one big long list of awful clashes. Now, we're both, or I'd like to say we're both very good at making sure you don't have a grindcore band clashing with a grindcore band or a straight up twiddly post rock band playing against a straight up twiddly post rock band. However, ultimately, the fan bases that we attract do like all the genres, or at least 90% of them. So sometimes when you clash bands that sound nothing like each other, it's still a terrible clash. And the worst one ever for me personally, and it killed me having to do it, was last year clashing an Alnathrak headlining the second stage with Maybe She Will headlining the third stage. Two of my favourite live bands, and I had to dash between both. And I got that proper feeling of like a fan. And it's happened to me at a million festivals, obviously, but at my own event, to be a fan and desperate to see both bands going backwards and forwards. But how we decide them is largely down to genre. No matter how good or bad, however you think of that band, we will try to keep a death metal band or a black metal band or a grindcore band against a sludge or a doom or something. So something that's fast and energetic against something that's low and slow. Ultimately, is how we try to do it.
Yeah, and I do that at Arctangent. It is basically different genres clash with each other. Sometimes your two favourites will clash. At 2000 Trees, I often think about who's the audience, because some of our audience might be 30-year-old people listening, or 40-year-old people listening to 100 Reasons, and then it'll be like a 19-year-old listening to something way newer. And those bands might at times sound in the same world, but if it's a different crowd, then they really separate themselves. I'm kind of like haunted by clashes, because I remember, I've got this massive memory of going to Reading Festival years ago, and 100 Reasons and the Wild Arts clashed, and they were like literally both in my top 10 favorite bands at the time.
Yeah,
and I couldn't really get my head around who the fuck thought that was a good idea. That is not a good idea. But actually, those big festivals, I think they're booked by different stages, but by different people. The agents, as we've discussed before, have argued over the billing and where they are on the stage, and then the bands end up just randomly clashing. And I mean, yeah, I watched the Wild Arts and was really sad to miss 100 Reasons. And I don't want people to feel like that at my festivals. So I was actually doing the 2000 Trees Clash Finder last night, sat on the couch, literally listening to every band, even the ones I already know. I was listening to them again just to be like, you've got to avoid clashes. But you can't help but look online and you see someone say, oh, I'm so excited for this band and this band. And you're like, oh, fuck. Well, they're not going to be that excited because they're playing at the same time.
I mean, as I say, if you've done your job right, ultimately you look at the Damnation poster, was it 30 bands there, and you're a bit like, I like 18 of them. Well, I mean, you've worked out for yourself. There's going to be some decisions to be made, and that is often the case. Fortunately for us, the way that Damnation runs is Arena 2 and Arena 3 clash, and nothing clashes with the main stage, because the main stage is from 6,000 capacity by itself, so yeah, it can absorb the whole fan base if needed. But those clashes can be rough, and you can see it. You can see the pain and heartache when you release it, and somebody's like, my two favourite bands I'm coming, even if it's completely Bell Witch and rotten sound. I mean, like, it could not be two more different bands, but that it's your two favourite bands you want to see. But like, we've done what we could, but ultimately you try to swap that clash. You're creating a new clash for others, and they're terrible. And I went to Hellfest once where Converge, My Dying Bride, and Down were all playing the exact same time. You know what I mean? Like, you've got something. You're just like, you have to swallow it. At some places, you're just going to get bands clashing. And I was looking at, for the shit that I have taken and we've taken down the years for Damnation, and never really clashed a genre against a genre. You get an event like Desert Fest that only really book that one genre or the subgenres of that lone, slow, doom, sludge. And all their stages are clashing, and people just Electric Wizard are clashing with Bong Ripper, who are clashing with Witchsorrow, who are clashing with, and people just kind of go, well, that's Desert Fest. I'm like, I'd like some of that allowance for Damnation, please.
Yeah. It's I mean, as a fan, I think you've basically got two choices at a small festival like ours, where you can watch half and half if you want to. But if you love a band, that's not the right thing to do, is it? If you absolutely love a band, pick Ain't on Athrak or Maybe She Will. Just make a decision. But if you're like, I really want to see them and I really want to see them, but they're not my favorite band in the world. I'm just like half and half it. We did a GoPro video at 2000 Trees to show people how small the site was.
Yeah.
And like a few of the guys, not me, sprinted the length of the field. And you can do it in like just under 2 minutes from the farthest stages. So it's like, stop moaning about clashes. Watch a bit of everyone.
Yeah. You could. I mean, you can. I mean, that between that Arena 3 and Arena 2 at Damnation now is one corridor, which is, I don't know, 60 yards, 70 yards maybe. You can literally get there by the time for the length of a riff. You can get to the other end and watch a band again. So, clashes are a necessary evil. And what I would say to people as well is watch the comments. For everyone that says, "Oh, I can't believe you clashed two of my favourite bands," there will be somebody saying this entire lineup shite and I don't like MD. So
yeah, both annoy me. So it's tricky to know which one I choose. But yeah, I spend loads of time trying so hard not to clash bands that are going to upset people, but ultimately you're also trying to stack your lineup, aren't you? So
yeah,
and Damnation and Arctangent, most people just want to watch it all. So
I mean, and that's the truth. And fair play to the fans that show up. I mean, have that. I mean, as I repeat and will repeat often in this podcast, having a fan base that show up at doors and fill arenas to watch bands who would otherwise be playing small clubs is fantastic. And if you need to handle a few clashes or create a few clashes to get that sort of atmosphere that the people are buzzing for it, then great, it's worth it.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree. Should we have one more? I've got a good one for you here.
Right, let's go.
Would you guys ever? This is from Stephen Edwards. Would you guys ever do a collaborative festival? And he's suggesting a couple of names here: Arc Nation or Damn Tangent.
Damn Tangent. Isn't Arctangent just a collaboration of Damnation and aren't you already doing that without me?
Is that you suggesting we're nicking your lineup? I think we're going to cover a whole podcast on that, Gav. Have you just announced a pelagic stage?
Not yet. No, you've just announced it on this podcast.
No, I saw it on Facebook.
No, it's not a poster yet, but there is going to be a pelagic stage on the. There's going to be a pelagic stage on the Friday. And
sorry, was that a secret? Was that a secret?
It's not. It's an open secret. We put it in a mail out to the people there, right? So it's like it's not been posted all over Facebook, but it's happening for the Friday. So thanks for that, James.
Well, it's good to see you nicking my ideas for a change.
I have to say with that. And the problem with that is like the vast majority of the bands are interested. And a lot of them are playing Arctangent this year, not over like. So you're a bit like, I mean, how bad? I mean, those 5 bands, you could almost end up with 5 bands that are literally on your lineup for this year. So I am conscious of that, and also know then getting the fire in line with our fan base saying, "Oh, is Big James booking your festival now?" Because when I saw you get that for Damnation, I was like, "Oh, that's rough."
Yeah, well, you've chosen the right. I mean, you got such an amazing amazing selection of bands to choose from there. Some of my absolute favourites. So that'll be great. So, I mean, in answer to the question, I honestly, I am never starting a new festival again, ever, in any circumstance. It is the biggest, most stressful world of pain imaginable, which we can no doubt do a whole podcast on at some point. Starting Arctangent was, I mean, we didn't know what we were doing with trees, but starting Arctangent was, you know, we knew what we were doing and we knew what we were risking, and it's just stressful. I don't want to do it.
And also on top of that, when we touched on this in a previous episode, is like when you're going to go and start something, make sure it's different enough to stand on its own 2 feet. And combining our events, as much as I'll have to say about the overlap that already exists here, but like, well, what else it would just be like a supercharged Arctangent or a supercharged Damnation, because there is a huge overlap. We go follow in this direction when it comes to death metal, black metal, and doom, and you go follow in that direction when it comes to your math rock and electronic and maybe clowncore. So it's that, but that bit in the middle, that nucleus in the middle, is the same event. Ultimately, one outdoors and one indoors at different times of year, so they complement each other, but they're different enough to stand on their own 2 feet. And us combining to do that, like, how would it be any different?
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a big Venn diagram crossover, isn't there, between the two? So yeah.
Right. So just take advantage of what you've got, guys. This is
both. Buy a ticket.
This is collaborative as it needs to be, this podcast. So my favourite subject, that I hadn't thought about this when we started the podcast. I wasn't quite sure about like how behind the curtains into the weeds you can go before fans start to switch off or like. And I felt like we tried that a bit when we done the Bollock billing a poster.
Yeah.
That kind of just fell flat in its face. I mean, ultimately, why are you two sitting there moaning about who gives a shit how our poster's put together? You know what I mean? That could have been the result of that podcast, but it was opposite. It was like, okay, the Dillinger one was fun and the Slayer one was interesting, but the real interesting one, the one's getting the most downloads currently, is the Bollock billing, because shit, you told us, you exposed a whole world of pain that no one had even contemplated. So to keep going in that direction, the dark arts of booking bands, is. I've got so much to say about this, and it's incredible, and it's very industry related. So, what's your feeling in booking bands, James?
Well, I mean, should we? Because my friend Scotty said to me that he thought that a couple of times we could have been a bit more basic in explaining what we were talking about. So let's just explain what a booking agent is and what a promoter. I mean, if we haven't even explained what a promoter is, it's the name of the podcast. So a promoter is someone who books a band or a bunch of bands and then sells tickets to people to see those bands, and the promoter gets a cut of the profit. Or if it's a festival, you get to keep the profit. A booking agent is someone whose pretty much sole responsibility is getting the band gigs and festivals, and they will usually, a UK booking agent would be responsible for the whole of the world apart from the USA, and they would put a band on tour in various territories, negotiate fees, and so the promoter and the booking agent directly face each other, basically, which is why we're always having a go about booking agents.
Yeah,
is that a fair explanation?
I feel like that is a fair. And if there was a podcast that exists out there called Two Agents One Pod, it would definitely be two white guys in their 40s moaning about idiot promoters that have fucked them over left, right, and centre. So we feel your pain, agents. Honestly, it's just that you're not sitting in this chair and we are. So unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But I suppose what would be most surprising to us to begin with, maybe 20 years ago now, and listeners now, is once you cross that divide from having never booked a band, I've never been a promoter, to being a promoter, just how wild west it is. That ultimately, even as us two chat now, from agent to agent, from deal to deal, from agency to agency, country to country, it's all different. It's all the Wild West. They've all got their own rules. They've all got their own stipulations. They've all got their own egos. They've all got just right up to today. I've still been dealing with just madness that isn't really that much different for the madness I dealt with in 2005. Is that your experience here?
Yeah. I mean, I think describing it as the Wild West hits the nail on the head, really. There's no, I mean, the ultimate thing is that there's no Priceless, isn't it? So and how everyone gets to a price is totally, how much are idols, how much are maybe she will, like it, how you get to that price is, I mean, I guess every promoter does it differently and every agent does it differently. And it's not a quick process.
But imagine, right? So and when we're saying that there is no menu, there's no price menu. So you walk into Tesco and you go up to the produce aisle and you go, oh, quite fancy some cucumbers today. I'll grab that. And he goes, how much are the cucumbers? Well, how much do you want to pay? Would you get a fucking anxiety say? You walk into a restaurant and say, can I have a steak? How much is it? How much would you like to pay? Like, I'd like to pay what it costs. No, but we need to have an argument first about what it costs in a car showroom. Yeah. I mean, I kind of think another place where you would go and something that's a commodity, basically, you have to then have an argument or a guessing game with somebody to get it, because you go to the agent and you say, any chance we can have Machine Head? Aye, Machine Head are available. How much can you offer? I'm like, well, how much do they want? And he goes, send us your best offer. And it's like, as that standoff happens, I mean, it's slightly better with Damnation now because I feel like I've pushed back on it now for 15, 20 years, that more and more agents are just telling me what they want and then we can do it for there. But largely, up to even a couple of years ago, it was 99.9% of deals start with that weird standoff that just seems to take 6 or 7 emails to get to a point of, can we just get a price one way or the other?
Yeah, and it's not obvious. I mean, obviously, we've talked about ticket sales of a band and how big they are in the past. Like, how big can you sell in London or whatever? Or more to the point for you, how big can they sell in Manchester maybe? But that's not clear. It's not clear at all what any band is worth. And the fact that the numbers jump up in fives, like 5 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, never offer 11 because they're going to get you to 15. It's always up in fives, and then when you get to a certain level, it seems to go up in tens, and it's basically people making up numbers. And the reality is, some bands have got a price because loads of people are prepared to pay that price to have them at their festival, and some bands don't get any offers for any festivals, and it's a bit more about how much it's going to cost them, maybe. Yeah. But it's a total, like, I mean, I am really like firm with agents about, I want you to tell me how much this is going to be, and if you don't want to tell me how much it's going to be, fine, but you better hope I really want that band, because otherwise I'm just bored of this conversation and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, because here's the thing, right? And it's all very we say, well, what difference to make? Just make an offer or not. But the only reason that happens, and it's the only reason there's no price list, there's no menu, is because the agent wants you to overpay. So if they know that band will play for 5 grand, they want you to offer 8. And when you offer it, they will take it. Believe me, they will take your 8.
When they rip your hand off and they're like, confirmed.
They do not come back and say, oh, by the way, they actually play all the other events in the UK for 5, so it's really 5's the asking price. Thanks for offering 8, but here's your 3 grand back. That never happens. They take your 8, and that's all worse. And you get cases where people vastly overpay, and that's, in fact, the foundation of a lot of failed events is bands who were never worth the fee they were getting. Ultimately, that proves to be the case. The ticket sales don't come through, and then the promoters look at it and say, I've got 150 grand worth of fees here now, and bands that are probably worth about 40 grand worth of fees, and I don't have to get the ticket sales for it, and away we go. And then everyone loses out, because most times in these situations, no deposit was paid, the band never see their money, and you're just wasted everybody's time over the course of months. So ultimately, the agent already knows. The only person holding out at the start of that conversation is the agent, because when you go, they already know the answer. You're guessing, and it also leaves you in a really awkward position. It never changes, no matter how long you do this, of trying not to offend the agent or band, which weirdly still happens, or losing your money. Like, basically saying, so what most promoters may understand is the way we do it is you lowball it. So if you think you're going to pay 5, you say 3, and then they come back and say, are you an idiot? That band's clearly worth 5. You say, okay, let's do 5 then. And it's like, why don't we not just do that to start with?
Yeah. I mean, it's pain. It is such a painful process, isn't it? I mean, I do quite like asking for a price off an agent and then still lowballing them. They've given, okay, it's this price. All right, then. Well, here's a bit less.
I mean, now that's the negotiation bit, because that's when that's the bit there. If you've got an agent that's decent enough to be like, right, okay, we'll just stick with the £5,000 being that sort of medium fee, like £5,000, and you'll be like, that's not awful. It's not like we couldn't get there, but can we do it for 4? All right, come on, we'll make it 4.5 then. Right, okay, 4.5, and that's a bit of negotiation. That's going to happen across the board. It's when you don't have any starting point for that negotiation, which just seems completely bizarre even at this point, because I think in my entire, let's say I booked 500 bands now, I think there's once where I felt that I get properly. I said to an agent, give me a price, and the agent went, no, you saying, I said like 500, and I thought it'd be a grand, and he came back and he said no, 4 grand, and I was like, oh, you know what, like dismissively, look, just take 1,000 then, and we'll just move. If you can't take 1,000, and he came back and says thanks very much, and I was like, fuck it, that fee, that fee was about like £750, and he's just paid 4 grand to me, and I've talked myself into thinking that 1 grand would be a deal, and he snatched my money out my hand there.
He's done his
So
job.
I was like, right, that's the one time that I feel like I've ever overpaid in that minute. I mean, sometimes you book a band because everything's a gamble, isn't it? Sometimes you book a band and you agree. I always feel like the best deal is one that you feel you've slightly overpaid, and the agent and band feel they're slightly undervalued. Well, if the two of you meet in that compromise where you just feel you spent a wee bit too much money and they feel they've just accepted something slightly less than they wanted, that's when you generally hit the sweet spot. But ultimately, once that deal's done, you can't grumble about it if the fans don't show up. I mean, ultimately, that's a gamble you take as a promoter. And if it was a guarantee, everybody would be a promoter. But
Yeah.
it is the Wild West. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, and I sometimes I don't want to just be having to go at agents all the time, but sometimes I think about, obviously not going to name names, but certain agents, I'm like, you've made so much money commission out of me. They get paid 10% of whatever fee you pay. You've made so much commission out of me over the years. I think you might give a bit more of a shit about the survival of my festivals and not try and rip me off, because there is a fair price, and sometimes if the agents can smell desperation, like if I get to April and I haven't got a headliner booked yet, they can stink the desperation coming off you, and the price goes up. Yeah. But it's a weird thing. You never really know how it's all going to work. Like this year at 2000 Trees, all 3 of my headliners, so Gaslight Anthem, the Chats, and Don Broco, all of them told me how much money they wanted, and right. I didn't lowball any of them. I just made the offer, and everyone's happy. And to be honest, if I've overpaid by a bit, like 10 grand, I'm fine with that to get the headliners you want. But there's another example that's happened to me recently at Arc Tangent, where an agent who I don't work with loads had a band that I really want to book. I'll tell you who this is afterwards, but that they and I thought they can sell about 200 tickets in Bristol. They're probably worth 1,500 quid to me. I said to him, "How much do you want?" And he said 12 grand. And they're an English band, and he's basically trying to pull the wool over my eyes, and he must think I'm an idiot. And that at that point, I just don't even reply. It's just like, okay,
yeah.
It's not happening, and I don't want to deal with you on anything really, to be honest. If you're going to try and charge me 10 times,
that's a good point I'd make from the promoters. Like, so this happened to me because see now more often than people are just coming and telling you the fee that they want because that's what they need to make. More often than not, I'm trying to get to that fee, if not just pay that fee, because I think even when they do that, it's still a negotiation of it is still slightly higher than what we would accept. But it was for smaller bands and an agent we both work with, and he was trying to get slots at Damnation, and ultimately it was a 3-band package, and he said, "This is the price," and I knew that just because of the size of Damnation to these bands and what being on Damnation would have meant to this band on this tour, there was definitely wiggle room to get that done. But I was just like, you know what? Boom, let's pay that price in. That's fine. Trying to haggle you an extra few £100 just because I think I can is the worst, because then that's what I'm moaning about when I come on here about when agents are doing that to us. So I can't come on here moaning and do it to somebody that's been upfront about this is the fee that we would like to make this happen. I'm like, okay, well, good. That seems entirely reasonable. And even though I do feel there's the power in this negotiation for me to drill that down a bit, let's face it, there's a lot of bands you could just say you can play for free, because there's bands out there you can say you have to pay to play. I mean, I
Yeah.
still get messages now, almost 20 years later, saying, can we pay to go into Damnation? And the answer is no. It's always been no. And every band in Damnation gets paid something, even if it's £100 in a rider in the back line. They always get paid something. So it's not a case that you could just do that across 5 or 6 bands and save yourself £600 and then go to the other bands and then squeeze in. Because ultimately, even if you've done that and you got a reputation of being a bit of a dick for doing that, you'd save yourself maybe 2 grand. Your headliner or the band below the headliner is going to swallow that 2 grand quicker than you can click your fingers. So it's really not worth the hassle to create that reputation for yourself anyway.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Do you get the thing where the agent, if you got again, the agent can smell a bit of desperation on you. Ultimately, if you've offered a headline slot to someone, you only offer those out when you really want the band, and they can smell the desperation. And even if it's not your first choice, you got to the point where they are now your first choice. They are currently your first choice.
You're on the panic list.
Yeah, they're on the panic list, and they're your first choice. And the agent can smell desperation, and they make you think, yeah, James, this is going to confirm in the next few days. And you're chasing them, and they're like, don't worry, it's coming. And then they'll ring you up and they'll be like, yeah, we just need an extra, if you can just get an extra 10 grand, I can confirm now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're being almost certainly being played at that point.
Yeah.
They would probably, if you argued it, they would probably still confirm at the lower fee. But this happened to me at Arctangent twice this year for the bigger bands on the lineup. Not necessarily headliners, but right at the top, where I was just like, oh, fuck it. I want the band.
Yeah.
I don't want to risk losing them. So I'll pay it. But you're basically overpaying. I mean, that's their job.
That hasn't happened. Fortunately, I've had the situation, and it's the same agents to do that. It must be a very well used trick. It gets to, this is going to be good, this is going to be good. And then it's usually, maybe it'll be an email that comes to the phone call, and it's like, that, and it's with desperation that you need to fill that slot. It's like, you've got the artwork prepared, you've got an announcement going, you've got the rest of the bands all lined up for it, you've got everything, and then they're going, can you just get, and it will be punchy 10 grand at something like Damnation, but he's sticking on a couple of grand in that. It's just that the flights have went up, and the band don't want to be caught out, or they're going to bring somebody across them the next day. You're like, that's not, that means if you'd done this same negotiation with 3 months ago, the answer would definitely be no, because we got to where we already done the negotiating.
Yeah.
We haggled to the point now. But now you know that I'm a bit like, the amount of hassle I need to go back through now to pull apart the poster, to postpone the announcement, because I thought we were going to get this band, I went and booked another genre of a band and the stage is going to clash. It's like they things that just, and also another, if we're going to put the tricks that they play, is like, I think what happens sometimes is agents let you hold a slot for a band that they are 90% certain they're not going to play that year, because it leaves them with the power of knowing that there's a slot available that they can try and slide another band into.
Yeah.
Further down the line.
Well, and also they will let you hold a slot while they're trying to get another thing, which is more their preference, which really fucks me off. I get that a lot with Download and 2000 Trees, where you think a band's going to confirm. It's like, oh no, sorry, we're playing Download. And it's like, you always knew that was happening, didn't you? You just kept me dangling.
In terms of the deal, right? So I think that's when we describe it as Wild West. That's why we feel it's that way. But the deal's not just the fee, is it, James?
No, it is not. So there's a bunch of extras that some agents like to add on to the deal, which is hotels, transport. In fact, I did my hotels and transport list last night, and there's about 15 bands at Arctangent that are having either hotels or transport, and there's 4 at 2000 Trees. And that's expensive, right? Transport means pick them up from the airport, take them to the hotel, then bring them to the festival, then back to the hotel. And some bands are like, we want to go back. They go back and forwards all fucking day long on your money, just like you're a taxi service. My head of RCAs on Sarah gets really annoyed, being like, we're not a taxi service. But also there's something called backline, which for those people that don't know, which would be a lot of people, is amps and drums, basically guitar amps. So obviously, if a band is flying or not touring in a big vehicle, they don't want to carry all their amps around with them. So that'll get included as well. But that can be like expensive. Go on, Gav.
That can also be shared backline, which was always my understanding of the deal. If you're going to provide it to the specs that the band want, they need to share it with other bands that use those same specs. And then last year it was all like bands were showing up like, no, we want exclusive backline. They're like, no higher than 7 different backlines to go along with the bands and the headline have got their own backline. We're in an arena and we're already starting to run out of space. I can't have 14 drum kits up there, you know what I mean? So
yes, it is annoying when they're like, yeah, we want the exact same Marshall cab as that band, but I don't want anyone else using it.
Aye.
You get that with lights as well. Get us these lights and no one else can use them. It's like, for fuck's sake. Yeah, so that can add like thousands though. Particularly some bands have very very specific requirements. Mono, yeah, Mono have like a fucking timpani, which is a type of percussion, and a gong, right? Sorry if I feel like I've told you this story before, Gav, but lots of people won't have heard it. So it costs fucking like 200 quid to get this gong. And I was pretty pissed off about it. And I watched their entire set, and like they only hit the gong once, right, in the whole set. And this sounds deeply unprofessional, but I was a little bit. I may have had a couple too many drinks. So when they finished, they were like the last band of the day. I went up on the stage, thinking that the crowd had all. I wasn't really thinking, but I basically picked up the beater and absolutely mullered the gong, which it turns out is really loud. And then all the band were looking at me, all the crowd were looking at me. It was a weird. I feel awkward telling the story.
Hey, you paid for that privilege.
Yeah. I'm like, I paid 200 quid. I'm hitting
200 quid for that gong. But
that sort of thing, it's expensive, you know.
It is because when you think about it, so your basic deal comes through and it's for Damnation anyway, because we bring in backline for each stage, so it's there on the provision it's shared. You know what I mean? You don't take it and then be like, oh well, we want a Tama kit, and then she wants this kit, and then he wants that kit, and then we're not exactly as you say, we're not using the same cab as the band 2 before us. They've got the same cab, you know what I mean? So the deal is usually a fee, backline, and catering. So, and your catering will be a basic rider of what you've got on this, and that move as you go up the bill, basically from the opening band being some hot food, beers and snacks, to the top band being smoked salmon and designer vodkas and champagne. And I'm sure some of your top band riders must blow some of my top band riders right out of the water.
Yeah, there's some pretty. It's not like Mariah Carey blew Eminem's craziness. Or Madonna. Do you know Madonna? You have to basically take Madonna's lounge, and wherever she's playing, recreate it exactly, which is incredible. But we don't get that sort of shit. But it's always just like, there's no way these people could consume all of this food and drink in one day in a million fucking years.
And that's always the thing as well, because ultimately, see, when you're done, you might think to yourself, oh, well, you're done at the end of the day, and you've got these fridges that are full of booze and full of, as you say, the smoked salmon and the sandwich platters. Nah, good for you. But see, at the end of the day, that's the last thing you even want to look at or see, because all that is a cleaning bill, you know what I mean? And ultimately going to somebody else. I'm not coming back up to Glasgow with 64 cases of all different nonsense, you know what I mean? So, there's a lot of times people make a big song and dance about the rider and will it be there and will we getting this, then basically fly in, play their set, fly back out, and the entire dressing room's barely touched. And you're like, that was an expensive waste of time for all involved.
It is really annoying. Do you get that? So the thing that actually costs the most money out of all of these things for me is where there's lighting or video stuff. So that is pricey, and I mean, at least you're in a venue. Is it fair to say you're in a venue? Because one of the problems with my thing is that there's nowhere to hang anything in a festival marquee, right? So when they say we're bringing all these lights, there is nowhere to hang them. So you have to build. It's called truss.
Yeah.
Is that already there in the arena?
No, I mean nothing's in it. It's a big empty tin can basically.
So you have to build that.
At least there is steel beams that you can hang trusses from. I mean, so everything can get built in there. and we try to circumnavigate a lot of that by putting video walls in all three stages, so you can get a lot of. But you're right, once they come in and it's the lights, and like Amin Raz, the perfect example of, even when you've got a video wall, they still want to hang there. So basically, we had to pay to bring in this is where my production limitations in my production. Basically, a truss that comes up and down like with remote control,
Yeah.
so just so we could put their bed sheet onto it, fire it
Yeah.
back up, and then project on it. To be fair, I was a bit annoyed about the fact. I was like, "Is this really necessary when you've got a 12-meter wide video wall?" And then they done it. You can see why it does look good. The
Yeah,
way
because it projects onto them.
projects on it, and I understand it. By the time I was like, got a 12-meter video wall there costing, I don't know, 10 grand to put in the stage, and you guys want to put up a bed sheet and a projector. I mean, save yourselves so much hassle, and just like, it'd be great to see an international with there. But then when you actually see the way they do it, like, right, okay, fair enough, you guys win again.
Yeah,
it
is
works.
Cool. But super expensive. And you're right. So we had Carpenter Brute a few years ago. You know, high definition fucking video wall. It was over 10 grand for only one band needed it. And the Sugar made us take it down because it was in their way as well. So those sort of requests are all part of the deal. And I mean, I did want to tell you about what one deal I made, which was with Highland, who headlined Dark Tangent last year.
Yeah,
so
who were excellent.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was one of the best things I've ever seen at one of my festivals. It's so brilliant. But for anyone who doesn't know them, there's about 20 of them on stage at times. They're like a bunch of warriors, and it's like some sort of historical recreation of like reenactment of I don't know, like some mythology or whatever. And it's fucking bonkers, frankly, and it looks amazing. But their rider, right, is 7 dressing rooms. They need a separate area for the warriors to train. So there's warrior training. So the warriors train for 3 hours a day, and you've got to provide them a separate area. They don't want to be watched, basically. So warrior training. There's also fire in their show. You've got to incorporate that. You can't say no to it. There's nudity in the show, which in some country, the nudity is like I said, it's a reenactment. It's not like Motley Crue nudity.
Yeah.
But you have to let that happen, and you have to facilitate a totally closed stage. It's the only time I've been banned from the backstage at my own festival, and I've actually followed the rules. Because when bands say we want to clear, you're not allowed here, I'm like, it's my fucking, you're in my house, mate. but when they're, you know, that's fair enough. Yeah. And a closed sound check, which if you've been to Arc Tangent, you'll know is not easy to do. Closed sound checks are a nightmare.
Right.
Because you're already there, right?
Yeah.
The fans are there.
So what did you do in that situation? Because I think me and you might have been doing a podcast on stage when they were sound check. How did you manage that?
We fenced or roped off the. You could get to the edge of the stage. So if you think about it, that tent's like 60 meters long. Yeah. So you could have got to 60 meters away from them and sort of peered in.
Yeah.
But no one could get in the tent, and that's about the best we could do. But that's complicated. Like all the warrior training and fire and fucking dressing rooms and 7 dressing rooms. I am in a field in the middle of nowhere. Right. What you're actually saying is, get me 7 porta cabins, and they come on a truck, and they cost like just over $1,000 each. It's like, you know.
So I mean, just right off the bat, $7,000 added to the fee just for something that's kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, and actually, so they are so specific about what they need that they send you a 1-page sheet when you're booking them, and the agent's basically like, you have to read this and you have to agree to it all before. It's not like, you know, agents will usually put, you agree to our tech rider.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the tech rider is. You just agreed to it. Whereas Highland, it's like, this is what you're agreeing to. If you don't agree to any of this, then we're not the band for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that adds some chunky money to the fee.
And it's incredible, because when you think, that's another point that's worth making. You sign up to deals, right? And these are contractual deals. If it's £100 or 100,000, they're contractual deals that you sign that largely aren't worth the paper they're written on, because they're signed by some guy in the UK, sent by some guy in Belgium, jurisdiction, some court in Germany representing a band from America. And it's like,
Yeah.
and ultimately, anytime the band basically break the contract, it's never thought because the amount of money, the legal fees you'd have to pump into it to try and fight back. I mean, maybe when we're talking at Metallica levels, of course, Manowar levels. You ever book Manowar, please make sure you've got a contract that's signed. But you're dealing with a band that's 10, 20, 30 grand even. That contract it costs you more than the band fee to try and litigate it just with the mess of where it all is, you know what I mean? And how you would ever get into that money back is ridiculous. That aside, you get a contract and at least 8 sections of it, full written out sections, are complete gibberish to your event. I mean, it's like, get no, and you go back to me, say, it says here that you need a 4-hour sound check. That's no possible festival. Ignore that bit. It says here that you need approval on all supports for the show, and that's just for our tour. I know, but you're asking me to sign it. It says here you need a 25-person guest list, and I'm like, you're only getting booked for £300. What are you talking about? I just ignore it. I'm like, I know, but you're asking me to know 3/4 of the contract that I'm actually signing. If I ever get showed up in a court, should it ever be taken to court, they would say, well, you said they should give a 4-hour thing. I mean, why don't you have a festival contract? Why don't you have one that just comes out and says, this is at a festival and not the nonsense that's in front of you just now? Because there's 3/4 of this contract that's not even applicable.
Yeah, they're total bullshit. I don't sign them ever. I delete them. And until they're prepared to write a proper fucking contract, which is about 2 parties, not just one, because it's all like stacked. The agent provides the contract. It's actually the band that sign it. And it's all about, if the promoter fucks this up, this is what happened. If the promoter fucks this up, this is what happened. The promoter's got to do all of this much security, lockable dressing room, no video. It's just like a list of shit you've got to do or not do. And there's very little in it for you as a promoter other than a date and a price. And I'm like, screw your contract, basically. I'm sure if like a big promoter like a Live Nation, they've probably got a standard contract with each agency that they've sat down and negotiated, and they work for every deal. But the contracts are bad, and which brings me on to one of my biggest bugbears, which is exclusivity, because so what that means is you may ask for a certain amount of exclusivity from the artist. So this is your only UK show of 2024. Maybe this is your only UK festival show. You can play some headline gigs, but they can't be closer than Manchester to Arctangent, or you can't announce the headline gigs for another 2 months, or whatever. You can have loads of clauses which basically give the festival some protection over the exclusivity of its booking. And you can almost guarantee every year I get agents that just ignore them. This happened. I definitely shouldn't name the band that has done it to me.
No, don't. I don't know how I've become this good angel on your shoulder. And this is never supposed to be the dynamic, but I'm trying to save your festivals and relationships.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, okay. But the breaking of exclusivity is really frustrating. And agents always claim they forgot. They didn't realize, oh, fuck, I've broken your exclusivity. I'm really sorry.
And the reason for that, to explain the reason they've got the exclusivity, it's not just a protection, it's because they've charged you more for it. And sometimes, in some cases, double. Like you want a band for £5,000 exclusive, it's 10 grand. So they have charged you for the exclusivity. It's not like that was a favour they've done to you for just so you could book them.
So to give you an example, without naming the band, but if the agent's listening, he knows I'm talking about him. The last year at 2000 Trees, a band came to me and were like, we want to play. It'll be a UK exclusive. And I was like, great, let's do it. And then the agent rang me a couple of months later saying, we're about to announce our London show. And I'm like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? It's a UK exclusive. And he's like, no, the London show's booked. It's happening. And it's like, that is just, you've got the money out of me.
Yeah.
And now I paid really good money because you told me it was their only UK show and I thought people would be really excited. Aye. And now here we find ourselves.
Aye. To be fair, and touch wood with this, that hasn't really happened to Damnation. The one case it did happen was Carcass, and the reason I'm mentioning Carcass is because it was via Jeff Walker, and we hashed it ourselves. Well, they agreed exclusively to play Headline Damnation 2013, and then were offered the Defenders of the Faith tour with Amon Amarth. and basically they kind of announced it, and I was like, right, what's happening here, Jeff? And he goes, you know what? It's a bit of shambles, but we want to go on this thing. Ultimately, we'll take a haircut on the fee. That was his terms. We'll take a haircut on the fee, and they took money off, and I was like, not ideal, but at least there's some sort of appreciation. We done a deal. I think a fee was agreed, and you've said, right, here's some of that money back because we're not giving you the deal that we promised we were going to give you. No. So, as much as I didn't like how that panned out, it was, at least it wasn't just a case of, well, screw you, we've got your money in the deal. Because what you're going to do, what is your only power to cancel the band? Does the fan care who's bought a ticket to come see that band? Exactly. Do they care about your Ponce exclusive deal that you've got with something, and the fact that they've done London, who forgotten? No, they don't. They're like, no, I've shelled out James or Gavin money for your ticket on the promise it's on this poster, and now you're telling me you're taking them off. So the agent knows that, the manager knows that, the band knows that you're not going to start pulling bands off your poster because it's just not a good look for you or your event. So you're kind of, once the band's announced, they do have a lot of power at that point.
Yeah, they do. And like, just to be clear here, because I don't want to sound like I came into this industry like 17 years ago, hating exclusivities and having a go about Live Nation, and I still am. And I just want to be clear that I don't think you should hold exclusivity over smaller bands. I think it is very bad for the industry. Like I think Arctangent and 2000 Trees and Damnation are there to like feed the wider heavy music industry with new bands, and to give those bands a platform to play in front of shitloads. I mean, you can, like, some small bands will play on the main stage at Arctangent or Damnation and play to thousands of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. And you'll pay them 200 quid. And you shouldn't be asking for exclusivity. They should go and build their career and do whatever the fuck they want, I think. So I'm not trying to be like, oh, we want exclusive this and exclusive that. But if you're going to headline the festival and you're going to come to me saying, yeah, we'll do, like, Animals as Leaders is a European exclusive for Arctangent this year. And fuck me, I've paid for that.
Yeah.
Right? So, and there's not been a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
That needs to stay as a European exclusive.
Yeah.
It's,
No, absolutely. Because when that comes down, that's not you just paying a band fee. You're paying 3 days travel.
Yeah.
You're paying the flights.
And you're flying them. Yeah.
The hotels, ground transport, the catering. I mean, it can really start. And that's why you're paying for it, because you're asking a band, and rightly so for the band's point of view, but if we're going to leave, where are they from? Are they American? Wherever they're from, anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to leave and fly across there. Well, we're not doing this for a one-off fee. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, we could just go and hit the UK and do 4 dates, make that money, and sell a bunch of merch anyway. So, that makes sense.
And that really does hit the fee big style. So I've got, like, at 2000 Trees this year, Cleopatra, Spanish Love Songs, Grandson. I'm flying them all in, and that is not ideal. And it isn't what I want to do. I wish that band was on tour, actually. I don't want the exclusive. I wish they were on tour and cheaper. Same for Animals as Leaders. I'd rather them be doing a European tour and it would be cheaper, but they're not. So it's either you stump up the money and they'll come, or you have to wait for another year.
Yeah, which is odd because that's a different sort of business model for what Damnation employs. We do go after UK and European exclusives. I mean, the vast majority of our bill last year was UK exclusive, and then this year as well, like, things going to turn out, you'll be, I think, bleeding through as a European exclusive. Nails is definitely a UK exclusive. That might end up being European as well. There'll be other bands in it, but that's because Damnation is trying to sell 6,000 tickets to a more niche audience, far more niche than 2000 Trees. And slightly more niche than Arctangent. Still a huge amount of time. And when you've got those bands, you really need to draw from every corner of the UK and potentially into Europe too. Sometimes fall in a field for smaller numbers of people. So you need it. These aren't bands that in their own headline show are going to do 2,000 tickets. So you really need them to come in, and people go like, I will jump on a flight from Germany, Holland, France, and I will go to Damnation because that band is only going to do that one there. Or especially London, Glasgow, Wales. I mean, you need those people to try, because you're just not getting that. You're not generating that number of 6,000 people just in Manchester.
No. Well, I want you to know, Gav, that Tyler offered me Ahab for Arctangent this year, and I didn't book. I said to him, no, mate, I'm not going to book them because Gav's got them.
Was that
So-
before or after you get ridiculed online?
Yeah, I can't take any more shit from the Damnation audience. But no, I put in my own exclusivity and was like, no, Gav can have them. That was my third favorite album of the year last year. So yeah.
Good. I think I tell you what, there's because we do we feel like we've wrapped up. I want to tell a story about the bolt thrower booking, but I feel like if we're going to talk about Mogwai in the next episode or a future,
let's do that.
I want to refer to a wee bit about bolt thrower because I feel like bolt thrower were our Mogwai booking. So I feel like I could probably tell that story then, and we could wrap this up unless you've got something else you'd like to say.
We were just going to talk just briefly about when bands are like hugely underpriced or hugely overpriced. And I had a little flick back through the sort of 2000 Trees archives and looked at some of the bands we booked who blew up after we booked them. So and I think it's quite interesting for people to see that I can't tell you how much I paid Idols in like a couple of years ago, but it was a shitload. And I paid them 100 quid in 2016. And they were starting to rise then. In 2010, I paid Bombay Bicycle Club peanuts, and that's not a band that would play 2000 Trees now, but they got an Enemy Best New Band award just after we'd announced them, and they fucking suddenly got massive. And it's like those sort of bookings where you I did it with Nothing But Thieves and Slaves, bands that when you get them, that's when you really nail in your job as a booker. You get in a band for all of those bands I just mentioned is like 250 quid or less, I think.
Yeah, well, you done that. Here's our example of when we done it the opposite direction. We were offered Bring Me Horizon for £200 and said no. We had Architects, I think, for £600 and said no, and we turned down Ghost at I don't know, less than £1,000. So,
mate, you turned down Ghost. Fucking hell.
So for all those examples where you book a band and they went to the Rocket, to the Moon, every time one that we got off on his band said, nah, it doesn't really suit us.
Yeah, that's got a sting.
To be fair, and I see this a lot. When you go, oh, these bands and we've done our big agents that tell you, oh, you had that. It wouldn't have made it. If we booked Bring Me Horizon in 2005, 2006, they would just have been the Bring Me Horizon in 2005. I mean, lots of events booked Bring Me Horizon back then for £200. They didn't sell any extra tickets because they're not the Bring Me Horizon headline download last year, you know. So
because they were shit in 2005 as well.
So our examples are those three always spring to mind. The bands that were like.
But that also kind of, sorry, Gal, that also kind of highlights the fact that you doing our job, you are getting pitched bands all the time. So I'm sure Ghost agent came to you and said, this is the next big thing. This band are going to be massive. But you're like, well, the last 10 people told me they were their band was the next big thing. So
there is not an agent out there who doesn't tell you that you're getting this band cheaper than you should be getting them, and they are going to be massive. And not only going to be massive, they're going to be massive by the time we play your event. And almost to a band, that doesn't happen. Especially now, like we don't have that. See, you get this like the slam dunks and the 2000 Trees. That scene that you're just getting your Idols and your Frank Carters and your Bombay Bicycle Clubs and these bands that just rock it. Bob Vylan, like 2000 Trees is just a hotbed of bands. You see, in 5 years, a lot of these bands are going to be at the top end of this bill again. For whatever, the metal scene doesn't really work because, well, where are those bands? I mean, there is only really one Sleep Token every 10 years. And even Sleep Token probably weren't much a Damnation band to start with.
No, but it's like there's a slower thing, I think, with Arctangent and Damnation bands. So someone like, I'm not talking about Sleep Token type thing, but someone like a Bosk or an Insult from Afar, these bands just gradually build themselves till they can sell reasonably good tickets around the UK. And, you know, and I think that's the same in like metal as well. You're not really getting the big exploding bands anymore. It's just not a thing.
Which is unfortunate because everybody, I do feel like everyone around the butts has had that like Outbreak had the Turnstile moment. You go, boom, and then Turnstile become the biggest band on the planet. Radar Takedown Festival had the Sleep Talking moment. And the fact that Sleep Talking even stayed in those events when they became a band that could sell out Wembley Arena in 10 minutes was credit to them. I mean, because you hear about other horror stories where bands get that big and then just either go back and rob the promoter blind or come out to the festival altogether. So credit to Sleep Talking for sticking with those events. And then you guys have had more than your fair share of bands that have just exploded as you've booked them. But Damnation, maybe Bring Me Horizon Architects and Ghosts were supposed to be your example. and we made sure they weren't. So that is the dark arts of band booking. So other promoters out there that are listening to this, if you feel like you're banging your head off a wall sometimes with agents and their quirky deals and the way they go about things and mock offence and they're just the way we all face it. And something reassuring as well, I went out for dinner with Cam from Download Festival when we were in Norway last year, and even at that level, at the top rung, they're dealing with the same stuff, but it's Slipknot and Metallica and Iron Maiden that are doing it. It's no Meshuggah or Converge that are making those demands. So it never changes. It sounds like it never changes. You're always dealing with pretty crazy demands, and it doesn't change no matter how it doesn't go away. So no matter how successful you get in this game, this is an issue you'll deal with.
It's reassuring to know that, isn't it? I think. The other thing I wanted to say is that I feel like we could talk forever on this. There's a lot more stuff we could have covered. So if anyone's got any questions that we didn't cover, let us know, because happy to talk about the dark arts of band booking anytime, really.
There might be something in it as well. Like, you're right. So let's say there's 50 questions been asked so far, just conservatively across those platforms. We've managed 4 or 5. So there might well be, maybe there is a wee bonus episode here or there, but it is a question, a Q&A, a good old-fashioned Q&A where we can get through something, because I don't want a situation where people are taking the time to ask questions and then we're not getting to them. Some of the questions are worth an episode themselves. There was one that was asked yesterday about how we feel about ultimately that breaking bands, giving bands platforms, and then how we help the development of bands and see them go on it. I mean, that's worth an episode in itself, just talking about what role we play in that. So definitely something to think about, maybe adding. But as we've said in every episode up to now, we will be shaped by what people want to listen to. This is very much a starting point of, right, okay, do you want guests? We can do guests. You want a Q&A? We can do a Q&A. You want the episodes to be longer? Do you want more than one a week? Whatever. You know what I mean? We're here to make this work. So you do your bit and subscribe, follow, write a review, do whatever it is you need to do at your end, and we will continue to show up.
Tell your mates about it.
Tell your mates about it. Get the pub, tell your mates to listen to this as well. And in the meantime, we will recommend some music now. I think I mentioned this previously. Your recommendations seem to be getting a lot more attention than mine. Don't know why that is, because my bands are better than your bands.
Maybe it's because I keep going first. You go first this time.
I'm going to go first, right? And this is right off the beaten track of the metal. I'm going to go with a band from the 2000 Trees lineup, because I've been taking a bit of time to digest that since we've been having these chats. Manchester Orchestra, who aren't new to me. I mean, they're one of my favourite bands, but the fact they're on the 2000 Trees lineup's fantastic. And they are how would you describe them? I mean, it's singer-songwriter. I mean, but it's no indie music. It's like soft rock.
Yeah, it's like I mean, it's hard to do this without sounding pretentious, but it's kind of like intelligent, like rock music. It's like beard stroking. He's got an absolutely beautiful voice.
He does.
I think it's like it's weird. Like my mum and dad really like them. I played them to them the other day, and you really like. If you think about the difference in music taste between people like me and you and my mum and dad, it's huge. They like cover a vast
and there's something to be said, because that's completely right. Because there's probably a lot of bands that you could lump into a similar genre that I would never be turned on to. But the guy's voice, Andy Hull, the singer. And my understanding is his dad was a pastor or a religious man of some type, and pretty strict with it. And a lot of his lyrical content's him struggling with his faith, and as he's grown up. And there's a track, if you're going to go and check them out, there's a track, Where Have You Been? And my understanding for the track, for how I listen to anybody interpret it, is him asking God or his faith, where have you been? And as he struggled with it, and his voice is so powerful, the lyrics are so clever, and it's the kind of music you put on with your old auntie in the corner and she would nod along to it too. It's great. I fly to Mexico on the last day of 2000 Trees, so my aim for this year is to get down for 2 days and somehow try to get back to Glasgow to fly to Mexico, because I would love to get down and do it again, and I'd love to see Manchester Orchestra.
Mate, come, if you're going to do 2 days, do Wednesday, Thursday. not a lot of people realise this, but the best day at both of our my festivals is the Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday's fucking great. Everyone's in a good mood. Less people there. No stress. You haven't got to run around.
Yeah.
Damn, we'll have a few beers on the Wednesday.
We're doing it. We're doing it. That gives me a day to actually get back up the road as well. So Wednesday, Thursday, 2000 trees. That is my choice. Go check out Manchester Orchestra if you're into something a wee bit different, because this won't all just be metal and James's weird prog bands. So, aye, Manchester Orchestra is my pick for the week.
Yep.
I want to hear about this in the comments, saying, cheers, Gav. That was a cracking pick.
Well, my band is Interama, who are a band that I have been a fan of for a while. They're not their last album, the one before was fucking amazing. They're playing Damnation this year. They're a band I've tried to book a couple of times for Art Tangent. It's never worked out. So in the future, when I do book them for Art Tangent, you don't get to say you've stolen my idea. You could check with the agent. But they are. Then I don't know if you've heard their new song. It's fucking mad.
I listened to it today.
Absolutely mad.
Now, my thinking about James was, they've played Damnation before, and I feel like interesting sludge, right?
Yeah.
Heavy, big riffs, interesting sludge. I put on, is it called New Heaven? I mean, see, when I heard that, I said, well seen, James has picked Interama, because this is like nightmare fuel. This is the soundtrack to a horror show.
I mean, there is only one band that is more scary and mad than this, and that's Imperial Triumphant. It's like going out to the outer reaches of like progressive death metal, weird, long. It's cool. I'm excited. I've seen them live once before and they were brilliant. So yeah, it'll be good at Damnation.
The thinking is actually, we're not quite sure. Do we put Interama on the main stage early or the third stage late?
Well, I would go third stage late personally, but because that feels like a band that can command a later slot and really like
make it.
And work. It's gonna, main stage is gonna scare people, isn't
it? that might be true. That might be true. Well, listen, that's great. I haven't even checked time. It feels like we went long there, but
I think we've gone long. Yeah,
I don't know one way or the other. I will catch you next week, big chat.
Thanks, mate. Take it easy.